could not find a werewolf costume that was cheap enough to afford.
Then
because
get a fucking dog!
I will say. Well, okay, maybe they could have done that, but like, all
Or
I know
just
is
don't-
that,
or
that
just-
costumes. Oh, I know. Maybe they didn't need to probably have the character be a wolf at all.
Not at all.
But
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
we would have
if-
assumed at this
Yeah.
point that these were the Marauders. They're
This
closer
thing-
to Game of Thrones dire wolves than they are like frickin' Wolfman.
Yeah. Exactly. I needed to be drunker than I realized. Let's go.
Okay.
You'd be better served with death.
Oh, he spares the guy.
Oh, what the fuck are you wearing?
I like how the caption doesn't fill in fuck.
It
It's
just
like,
blanks it
what the
out.
blank are you wearing? What?
What?
Why wouldn't he
Never
just
did
say,
listen.
"What the bloody hell are you
What are we
wearing"?
going to tell him, James? Quidditch match gone wrong?
I think he'd buy it. Remember the Hufflepuff kid that went missing for a week for chasing the snitch? What was her name?
Augusta Bone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is he downstairs?
Who? Rosia, you captured one of the Dark Lord's followers.
I kind of almost forgot the entire point what they were doing.
Yeah.
The guys they captured a guy. I forgot about that.
The boy who
Dark
looks
Lord.
like Lupin isn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
They could have just had him like this the entire time.
That's right. They call him that. We call him...
Up blithering, bumbling band of buffoons. Help, maybe?
All right, come on. You two better explain this fuck up to Dumbledore.
Really?
Lupin.
Is it
would
weird
be-
that they're cursing?
It should have been Lupin. I would have accepted it from Sirius, and I would have even potentially have accepted it from James. But from Lupin, no.
Because like
Lupin was
the way
completely-
they're saying fuck, it just does not. I'm like, wait, that's not what? Because
It feels weird.
They usually replace our curse words with like their own world curse words or something.
Did you
right?
read Dockery?
Right. which I kind of that's like a little because to me that adds a little charm to it when they're not using like like a
I always
gangsta
get
fuck.
happy.
You know,
I always get happy when I hear one of them say Merlin's pants. That's
Right.
my favorite
Or
wizard swear ever.
It's just like in if you guys ever saw the show Spartacus, they'd be like Jupiter's cock, and they'd like instead of oh my god or something or Jesus Christ, they'd say something else that's funny.
Have you ever seen Potter Puppet Pals?
Yes,
You have
yes.
the Wizard Swears episode. Have you seen that?
Not that one. I just remember the like where we're Harry Potter. Then
We'll have to
whatever.
watch that at some point.
One of those thingies.
You'll see what I mean. For those in the chat later after the show, go look up Wizard Swears. Okay, you'll know what I'm talking about. Your mother is a
Okay.
Ella lips alone and a bucket of poop. It's hilarious. It's so fucking funny. Your smudra.
All right. Oh, that's it.
I guess so. Really?
Wow, so like 3 minutes of this are credits?
4. Well, yeah, no, 3. You're right. Holy
They're-
crap.
Wait, hold on. What?
Okay, here we
Oh,
go.
so then it moves to something else.
Follow me. Young serious.
This is young serious, so assume they're younger now. Yeah.
Well, show us then.
Whoa! This is scary. To a wimp.
I feel like the filmmakers of this had their little brothers around, and they wanted to be in it too, or something.
Yeah.
They were like, I don't know.
I don't know why the eyes are supposed to be doing that. What is the point?
I don't feel like finding out, but I guess. I guess.
But I thought werewolves were, wolves. This isn't my werewolf form. That I cannot control. This is me practicing to become an animagus.
Oh, they're explaining why he didn't look like a werewolf.
That's not how becoming an animagus. First of all, it's animagus, not animagus. Okay, stop fucking talking like the movie. That's not how they say it. Second.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Lupin never
Breathe.
becomes an animagus, and even if he did, that's not how you become an animagus. It doesn't happen in like a section by section thing. You have to do like a month's worth of fucking spell work, and when you finally get done with the month's worth of fucking spell work, you don't get any say in what you fucking turn into. It just fucking happens. So you can be a fish flopping around on the ground. There's no fucking part way through it. There's no glowing eyes or half a talon. There's no fucking eyes sprouted one wing, and my left arm is a flipper. That's not how this shit works. You either turn into the animal or you fucking don't. Fucking hell. Sorry.
The only for sure thing, and I use for sure
kind of liberally here when it comes to anime guy is
Anime fuck you.
is that it is very frequently associated with what your Patronus is.
Not necessarily. Your inner animal is not, you know, what you would necessarily think it would be. It's not necessarily what you want to be. Your inner animal is frequently it's just, you don't fucking know. You have no fucking clue until it happens, right? And then once you sort of come to terms with it after it happens, more often than not. So it can coincide. It's not that it never coincides, but it's not like sitting there thinking that you shouldn't sit there and think that your Patronus is an indicator. And 9 times, a lot of wizards, qualified witches and wizards, never even cast a corporeal Patronus, which is like a Patronus with an actual animal form. Lots of people, even if they can actually manage to cast a Patronus, most of the time it's just going to be a wisp. It's not going to be a full corporeal. Whereas if you could do a corporeal, then you've got like the full-fledged animal form. Most people can't do that, even fully qualified wizards. That's why it was so impressive that Harry could do it. Like he literally, Susan Bones,
and then taught a bunch of other kids to do it.
And then taught a bunch of other kids to do it. It was really super impressive. Although Hermione had a really fucking hard time with it. But no, it's not. I mean, I see what you're saying, sweetie, and it's not that there's no indication possible there, but it's not like your Patronus is going to tell you if. And animagi are super rare too. There's not enough cases to compare and contrast either. There are like 7 animagi even around that were registered when Harry was a kid. So like. I mean, there are a few There were a few that weren't registered, like freaking old Rita Skeeter. She was unregistered. She was a beetle. But like those are super rare. There's only like 7 around when Harry was a kid. Animagus are super rare. And that was why it was so fucking cool that his dad and all 4 of them were Animagus. So I don't know why they're sitting there acting like whatever. Anyway, my bad.
Well, that's all right. They've got 500 subscribers, and they say the Order is a Harry Potter prequel web series following the last few days in the life of James and Lily Potter. Episode 1 is an introductory episode to this fan-made series featuring James and Sirius after capturing a Death Eater, and they did a little crowdfunding thingy for it.
I appreciate fan-made films, and there are several that I would recommend to people right now, and even with things that don't necessarily work canonically speaking, but I still am like, hey, it's still worth a check out. Like the Marauders, that one doesn't necessarily work canonically, but I appreciate a lot of the effort put into it. But this one was mostly a really shitty fight scene and some really bad lore breaking stuff that is in this. So if you're going to make a fan made movie, I suggest you actually read the content before you do so.
Well, sometimes some of them, it really depends. I've seen a whole bunch of them up to this point, even though not all of them are posted yet. I watched like over 34 with people of Power Rangers, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Mortal Kombat, Halo, just a bunch of different ones. And it's like some of them go more into the lore aspects and try to bring a lot of those to life. Some take a concept like from Star Wars and try to apply it to whatever story they're trying to make with new characters. I mean, there's a big variety of different approaches with a fan film, essentially, with some of these. But yeah, having closer stuff being accurate at least, and then have your characters, I think would probably be more pleasing to everybody watching.
Yeah, I think you're gonna piss some people off if you're not careful. When you're making a fan film. Well, look, I don't feel like I'm one of those unreasonable people who, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, this is basic stuff that just a basic book reader should and would know. And so for them to sit there and behave as though it's completely normal first of all, Lupin wasn't an animagus. He was a werewolf. So, what are you talking about?
So let's do this. So
the thing is, the whole thing was that Peter, James, and Sirius chose to become animagi in order to kind of stay around and comfort their friend when he was in werewolf form. So he wasn't constantly alone when he was locked up in the Shrieking Shack.
Yeah,
that was the whole reason why they chose to do that.
And he said, what he had said was, because this was something never tested before. Okay, so they traveled into the realms of hitherto unexplored magical areas. The Marauders did in a lot of ways. They were very gifted students, and hanging around with a werewolf was highly dangerous, very dangerous, right? But keep in mind, he was a wolf. He was a big dog. Okay, he was a big wolf. That's all it was.
Doge.
And so
big puppy.
When they transform, and werewolves only attack humans, they don't attack other animals. In lieu of a human to bite and scratch, they will bite and scratch themselves. And so when they turned into Animagus in their 5th year was when they did it. And they proceeded to spend time with him in their animal form, because they were safe from being turned into werewolves, because werewolves don't attack other animals, just people. They kept him more sane. They kept him, he was less wolf-like, is how he described it. And he felt a bit more human when his friends were with him. And it was a truly magical thing to discover, that a werewolf could in fact be made less dangerous by the presence of friends and by the presence of love and affection. And again, another testament to the power of love and what love can do to break down bad magic and to sort of diminish the adverse effects, right? I would be interested to see an article from J.K. Rowling going in depth about what that meant, because we really only have a few hints about what that means. So we can infer some things when she says, when Lupin sits there and talks about, I became less wolf-like with my friends around. I was less dangerous, even though there were some near misses and we were reckless. I became less dangerous. We can infer from that the presence of love, which is a theme that is sprinkled all throughout the Harry Potter books, that has a great deal to do with that, because love, the magic of love is so potent in the Harry Potter universe, right? But I would really be interested to see that. But no other presence that we know diminishes the vicious nature of a werewolf. None that we know of. Only the presence of friends can make them just a bit less rabid.
Andrew, what would you give your summary thoughts on the fan film?
You see, it actually started out kind of strong, because there was kind of there was an interesting hook to it in the beginning. In that first, it was like 3 minutes where they have the Death Eater monologuing there, and as Mary noted, it felt very much like he was reciting kind of a lost tale, fairy tale of Beetle the Bard or something like that.
Super cool.
And yeah, that was really interesting. And then it went into the battle, and it was no longer interesting, because there wasn't meat to it, and it kind of just felt like, hey, we don't know what to do in the next scene, so let's just have them fight. And so the only real story bits are in those first 3 minutes, and the rest of it is the fight.
Yeah.
And then also wrapped up in that fight is where you get all the lore breaking things. Like, okay, well, we're one of two things is going to be the case here. So they either used green for the Death Eater's spell effects, because they knew that green would be associated more easily by those familiar with the films as being a spell that's used by bad guys, right? But at the same time, it could also be reasonably surmised that that's supposed to be a Avada Kedavra. And there's no reason to not think that. There's no reason to not think that. And so it's an issue if they're just blocking Avada Kedavra like it's nothing, like it's just another spell, and they're in dueling class, right? And then even more so when Sirius gets struck, and it's like, well, why isn't he dead?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go on.
I got distracted. That looks really cool. Thank you. But yeah, I wish there was more story to it and less battle. That battle could have been cut down by a half, if not more, and left more screen time. I realize this is only the first episode in this series that they're doing, but there's just not enough story.
They could have been like, gone out, pokey poke a little bit, go back inside, do something to, the Death Eaters are trying to get in to get the guy, and they've got to figure out something, get the information out of him before they get in or something, maybe.
Or at the very least,
like,
just make that battle. That battle should have been cut by half, if not 2/3. If not 2/3, and then you can still have some of the same events happen. They just can happen much more quickly.
Because otherwise,
there was a lot of useless
nice.
back and forth nonsense.
Yeah, it looked nice.
I'll credit them. The effects look good for a fan.
It's the equivalent of having swords and going hua 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 hua
over and over and over and over. It just
just like,
it's not entertaining. It's not entertaining, and so. Cut that battle by like 2/3, and then you still have the same major moments. I say that liberally in that battle happen. Okay, Sirius gets hurt. Fine. Remus and Peter show up to help James finish off the Death Leaders, or at least send them packing. Fine, you can do that, but then have the 4 of them go back inside and then continue the actual story instead of that duel, if you want to really call it that. Instead of that lasting 5 minutes. Have it last 1.
Well, you have to know what your strengths and weaknesses are in this kind of Harry Potter's strength has always been the storytelling. It has always boiled down to the interesting world building that you can do, and expanding on those characters would have been welcomed and appreciated and loved, and I could have totally gotten into that. But that's not what they did. They didn't expand on these characters. They took bits of information, used it out of context, and focused on one of the least strong aspects of Harry Potter, which is the dueling parts. That Harry Potter has never been about the action. It's never been about the action. There are only a few ways that you can make the action look cool, and that's if you have a shit ton of money to spend on special effects for these really cool spells. Like when shards of glass come flying at you and you turn them into sand, and it comes flying down, and then they get swirled around and sent back, and then they get turned into birds. That's cool as fuck. You don't have that kind of money. Figure some other shit out.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got the kind of budget that freaking allows for, Fiend Fire and Protego Diabolica and, the Firestorm spell, things like that. If you can do that, more power to you by all means. But otherwise,
so
keep it to a minimum.
But you don't need to show that much of a battle either, but still get the point across.
It's never been the strength of Harry Potter. Never. It's never been the strength of Harry Potter. And I agree. You don't need a battle every 2 seconds. If your writing is strong enough, and isn't that the point of fan fiction? Isn't that the point of fan films? Is that you're delving into this lore, you're expanding on it, you're putting your own twist on it. See, if you're starting from a visual. Like if your first thing, and I think you could probably attest to this because you're more the technical guy, right, yeah. Ricky? If you're starting from a visual, if you're starting from going forward looking for something as a visual, you're coming from the wrong place. Your story has to be on lock first before you worry about any of the rest of it.
Well, it's like you can have an idea that you want to execute, and if you know that you can get there, the point is like, okay, if you're going to make a story to get to that point, then the story has to be good. The story could even be inspired from that one like scene you're imagining in your head that's going to look cool, but you got to walk it back and make the rest of it more interesting. Like in the show Spartacus, like a lot of their motivation was they wanted to have a presentation of a lot of cool fights, and then they thought of the story and historical aspect, which characters focus on, and work backwards from there, and they made that work really well, essentially. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's still the story and has to run you through to make those, special effect points meaningful. Yeah. Essentially, otherwise it's surface level emptiness, kind of.
Yeah, if there's no purpose, it's completely pointless. And no one, like I literally just want to play. Who gives a shit on loop, right? Like, just no, it's not fucking worth it, and it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I lost interest in what was going on.
Yeah, I forgot what was going on when their battle was done. I'm like, well, what are they doing that for? Well, hopefully their next episodes improve more on focusing on the story stuff and not trying to get just the action bits down, because it seems like the wrong focus for their genre here. And honestly, again, watching people fling spells at each other for more than a minute gets really boring.
Really boring.
Again, unless you have the budget to do some,
it's like even then, it really depends on if they have a bigger budget. Then I'd want to see more creativity in what they're doing because I would imagine like, again, like, yo, I'm going to turn this branch into a, thing that wraps around you. I'm going to, we'll uproot this tree and sharpen its thing and throw that at you like a, I don't know. And you got to be able to react and what am I going to do? Okay. What can I do? And, something that keeps the pace up.
Yeah.
With creativity.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that there's no fan film of any genre anywhere that wouldn't work with a focus on the action aspects of it. But Harry Potter's not the world you want to do that with.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat is more where you do that, I would say. Because the story's second in that. It's usually the fighting.
Yeah, you've got to really understand the realm you're working in. And if you don't understand that, you have no business doing this in the first place.